Hello, everyone. I'm Suzanne Sherrard. I'm the founder of the Yoga and Movement Circle, and I am so excited to be talking with Katherine Hall today. She is a registered nurse, a holistic health coach, and she just helps women with making lasting lifestyle changes in regards to their diet, getting deeper nutrition in the food that they eat, building better habits, and especially having more control over cravings and just their diet. So I'm very excited to be talking with her today. Today may very well change and shift the way that you think about food because we're going to be diving into some very interesting topics. We're going to be talking about the history behind why some food feels so addictive. We're going to talk about the food industry, how it borrowed tactics from big tobacco, which is going to be a fascinating story to learn about, and what you can do to make more informed and empowered choices starting today. And so today is just going to be real talk from the heart, packed with lots of insights. And especially for women 50 plus, it's going to be great information. So welcome, Katherine. Hello, hello.
Hello, Suzanne. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here in this space with you today.
Oh, thank you. Well, before we dive into all these amazing topics that I brought up, I'd love to start with your story. So, what led you to become a nurse, and what is a nurse coach?
So I grew up in a family where everyone was in the medical field, so I think it was just kind of something I grew up with. But I've always been passionate about helping people, and I loved seeing people just going through the process of healing and change growing up, and I really wanted to be a part of that. So that's why I became a nurse. Very quickly from the get-go, as like right out of graduation, I started to realize though that our medical system is pretty broken, and as much as there's so many amazing things that our medical the world of medicine can do. Unfortunately, we have kind of lost sight of preventative medicine, I think. And I was really fascinated as to how we got to that point. Like, how do we prevent people from ending up with chronic illness? 80% of the population in the United States is diagnosed with some kind of chronic disease. And that's a huge number. And that has jumped tremendously in the last 40 years or so. And so I just really wanted to know why and what I could do to prevent that. And so I became a nurse coach where I primarily get to work on preventative medicine, helping people that have things like type 2 diabetes, hypertension, um, issues with their like cholesterol, things like that, just decreasing all of those things. But also from a medical perspective, where I get to combine my nursing knowledge with all of my like coaching. So yes, that's what I do. And I get to empower people every day to just know, like, be able to make better decisions and change their lives. So yeah.
Well, that's awesome. I love that background. Just makes so much sense that you would become a registered nurse, and you recently got your board certification too.
Yeah.
So, congratulations. And what does that entail? What is that certification about?
So the nurse coaching specifically, it's not really like health coaching in a sense that it's a lot more focused on every aspect of life. So it's very holistic focus. So you're talking about movement, which is where things like what you specialize in comes in, and then nutrition, which is where my specialty is for the most part. But we're also talking about your mental health and your spiritual health and all these things as well. So the board certification is not required to be a nurse coach. You have to go through some more schooling in order to, and then graduate from a program in order to become a nurse coach. But then if you want to pass like the national certification, you can study for longer and then take a board certification, which takes like, it's like a 4-hour test that kind of, it's really hard. Honestly, I did not think it was going to be as hard as it was, but yeah, so very thankful to have that done. But it just kind of gives you another level of, okay, you've passed like a certain level of education, and you have more to offer essentially.
Well, that's awesome. Congratulations. I'm excited for you. That is a big step. So, yeah. Well, one thing that when we talked about preparing some notes for this interview today, you had said, well, I could talk about how the food industry was changed from the tobacco, big tobacco, and how the processed food strategies they were kind of brought over into today's um, society and the world. And so, enlighten us about that. Tell us that story. I think it's really fascinating, and a lot of viewers would be very interested to know this history.
Yeah, so this is something that when I started studying to become a nurse coach, that I had discovered and I was super fascinated with. But basically, it started in the 1960s. The government started to kind of crack down a little bit more on all the tobacco companies. And the government basically was saying, like, hey, tobacco is not good for you. We're going to not allow certain advertisements and certain things like that. And the tobacco companies saw that and had a little bit of a panic because they were making a ton of money at this point, and they were like, "We need to find somewhere else, another outlet to make money through." And so they ended up transitioning a large part of their business into making ultra processed food. So for example, I don't know if you know of the company like Philip Morris that was big in like the tobacco company. That's who started Kraft, like Kraft mac and cheese and things like that. Um, but that was just an example. There's multiple huge tobacco companies that transition into starting ultra processed food companies. Up until this point, food had been minimally processed, to make like a breakfast sausage or something like that, but nowhere near as processed as it became from this point on. Um, Basically, these companies ended up transitioning their scientists who were focusing on creating cigarettes that were highly addictive. And then they just took those same scientists and were like, hey, now create food that does the same thing to people. And so these scientists started to essentially chemically engineer foods and combinations of foods together that when consumed like individually, like if the ingredients are consumed on their own, they do not have the same like hit to our reward system that these ultra processed foods do, because you're having like three, like something that's really high in sodium, something that's really high in carbohydrate, and something that's really high in fat, all combined hitting your body all at once. And then that hits your reward system and your brain goes, oh, I like that and I need more of it. So it's pretty crazy because they actually had a slogan in the 1960s for like potato chips, that said, betcha can't eat just one. And they knew that people wouldn't be able to just eat one because they knew exactly that they had been engineered to make them want to eat a lot more than just one. So essentially it kind of hijacked our demand and reward system in our brains to the point where it was never satisfied and it always needed more from these specific things. And our bodies were not designed to be having that kind of intake, and they were not designed to process that. So it's been very damaging to our bodies ever since.
Wow. That's a very fascinating story, and uh, probably linked to the 80% of the population having some type of a diagnosis with health and wellness issues compared to back in the 60s. I saw a post on Facebook not long ago. Look how healthy people were in the 60s, and you had a bunch of slim people on the beach. But talking with you and learning more about the tobacco industry, you think about it, well, a lot of people probably just smoked back then instead of eating. Um, but, pictures at a beach is not a true representative of uh, obesity, for example, because my mother cooked with Crisco, and made the fried chicken, and they just didn't know about health back then and they weren't knowledgeable about it. So it's very fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
Um, and of course, I mentioned to you that I work with a lot of women 50 plus because that's my age bracket. And so why is this information so important, especially to women after they've gone through menopause and they're getting a bit older because our bodies change so much.
I'd say probably more than any other age group. women in that 50 plus are impacted the most by this. I think there's a couple different factors in that. One is the fact that um, you start to see a lot of decrease in muscle mass and joint health and more inflammation. You also see a lot more issues with hormone imbalances and decreased metabolism. So I hear a lot of people say, now that I've like hit menopause, I can't lose weight anymore. I'm not, my body's not the same as it was before. And that's 100% true. Your hormones act completely differently. And so that's why it's even more important than ever to not consume as much processed food. Also, if you've consumed food from an early age on, those receptors in your brain that tell you I need more start to get to the point where you're building kind of a higher tolerance for these things. So if you continue to eat them, then your body thinks it needs more and more and more of them. Um, which also, all of these things are impacting your health at a cellular level. So your cells are getting worn out. They're being fed, they're being inundated by toxins that they don't know how to process and turn into energy for your body. So instead, they just keep storing them, which then continues to decrease your metabolism and decrease your ability to build muscle because you're not giving yourself something your body can use as energy. So it's why a lot of people I think feel a lot more fatigue, and that's why they're seeing more inflammation because your body is storing toxins, which is not really obviously beneficial to your body in any way, shape, or form. But yeah, and then also you start to see something we're seeing a lot more in the last like 20 years or so is insulin resistance, which is very common in not just women, but anybody um, almost as a whole now, which is really unfortunate. But I think now about 50% of adults are either diabetic or pre-diabetic. And that's just above, like, I think that's above 25, pretty much everybody. So, but it's way
Mhm.
more prominent once you hit 50 because your metabolism slows down. So
Mhm.
that's why
Mhm.
it's so important.
Yeah. Well, for our viewers out there, let us know in the comments what foods do you struggle with. So, what addiction? What are you hooked to? And Catherine will come back. We'll come back later after the interview. If you have any questions, be sure and put them in the comments, and she can come back and answer them for you. But I know for me, my biggest hook food is ice cream. And we're going to be talking about that here shortly towards the end. That was another big thing that really attracted me to reach out to Catherine and want to interview her because she knows how to make a high protein, healthy ice cream. And she's going to be sharing that with us today. So you have lots of different flavors, and I'm excited for you to tell us about that.
Yeah.
So let's go dive into reading food labels. How do we not get tricked into the misleading things? And what do you recommend in that category?
Um, this is a area that I'm very passionate about because unfortunately in the United States it's very, very easy to access very highly processed food that has almost no nutritional value. Um, and unfortunately, the FDA, I don't think has done the best job of like regulating all of those things. And there's a lot of things that you can say are, for example, you can say eggs are free range eggs as long as the chickens have a singular window in the building that they're in. And things like that. And so it's really hard to know what are you actually getting at the store. So this is one of the first things I do with all my clients is essentially teach them how to read a label and give them the confidence to walk into the store and know that they're going to be buying foods that are going to be beneficial to their bodies and not hurtful. Because I don't really like labeling food as good or bad, but I do really encourage people to ask themselves, is this something that's going to help fuel my body or is this something that can hurt my body and go off of that instead? Um, so a couple things when it comes to reading labels, I recommend instead of looking at the front of a package, immediately just going to the back and reading the ingredient list. Um, Regulations for marketing are very broad a lot of times. So people, things can say high protein on them, but instead be actually super high in carbs and not really have that much protein in them. And so you can think you're eating something that's high in protein, and instead you're eating way more carbs than you ever intended to eat.
Mm.
So yes, the most important thing is really just read the ingredient list on the back and read the like the nutrition label and see the difference in how much protein is actually in this compared to the carbs and the fat that are in it. And you can bounce all that back to calories. And see, now I'm not suggesting here that you need to count calories or anything, but it does help to be able to recognize what is the predominant category in this food. Is it a carbohydrate? Is it a fat? Or is it a protein? And not that any one of those things are bad necessarily, but it's good to know which one you're getting out of that primarily.
Well, that's a really good tip because I actually have been counting calories for the last couple of months just to become more aware of calories in food. And one thing that really surprised me is peanut butter has 190 calories for 2 tablespoons. So before I was eating apples with a big old scoop of peanut butter, and I had no idea how many calories I really was eating. But then you look at also an avocado is quite high in calories, but you can't really compare the two because avocados are just like a superfood almost. They're just so nutritious versus peanut butter really probably isn't really even very good for you. I don't know. Um,
Yeah, I think
so
it depends on
yeah.
butter.
Huh?
I said I think that really depends on the peanut butter because there's so many different kinds
Mm.
out there.
Well, that's true. And I wanted to ask you about the organic produce versus non-organic. Do you have what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm actually, I love this kind of thing. I personally, I know it's not realistic for everybody to be able to shop all organic. In a perfect world, organic things would not be as insanely expensive as they are. But there is a list that's published every year called the Dirty Dozen, and it's basically where they've analyzed the top 12 foods that are sprayed with the most parasites that are, or not, sorry, not parasites. That was not what I meant to say. They found the 12 foods that are sprayed with the most amount of pesticides, was what I was trying to say. And they basically put this list together every year based off of the last year's produce. So in our house, we do shop primarily organic foods, specifically in meat and then the Dirty Dozen. There are some things that are really hard to find organic, like garlic, which is a really random thing. But there are some things that we do not buy organic. But I think one of the most important things when you're trying to decide between which things should be bought organic and which things shouldn't is, does this have a natural peel that I'm not going to consume? For example, oranges. Oranges have a protective coating with their peel on the outside that kind of protects the fruit on the inside from pesticides, so you're not consuming as much um, as you would say eating an apple. Apples have been on the Dirty Dozen list for years because we eat the skin of the apple, and that is something, the pesticides go directly onto that. So in those things, if you are going to buy things that are not organic, I really recommend getting like a high quality fruit wash that will balance the pH in the water to the point where it can kill the pesticides that are on that and remove it from it. Or if you want a less expensive way, you can just do some water and baking soda and let that soak for about like 6 to 8 minutes and then rinse it really well. And that brings the water to the right pH to kill the pesticides as well.
Yeah, yeah. I bought one of those washes that really does make the produce feel it tastes really fresh. So I think it does pull those chemicals out of there. And let us know in the comments, guys, what kind of foods that maybe you were surprised that you thought might have been healthy, but really aren't. So um, and then let's go into a little bit more about ingredients and what to watch out for. So, what are 3 to 5 that you recommend on cutting back on ingredients that are not good for you?
Um, this is really easy. I'm gonna kind of put it into a couple categories. And I actually am launching a little, like a short little guide that you can take with you to the grocery store that has a list of these things on it. So if you are getting into reading labels for the first time and you don't really know what to look for, just comment down below and I will send you guys the link to download this guide. It's free, but it will kind of take you through all the names that are kind of the hidden ways that not good foods are snuck into things. So the first category would be seed oils. My husband and I try our best to not consume any seed oils, which would be canola oil, vegetable oil, sunflower oil, soybean oil, which is usually vegetable oil, grapeseed oil, and safflower oil. These have such a low burn point and are so processed synthetically that in the inside of your gut, they essentially like burn the lining of your gut and give you leaky gut. It can cause so many inflammatory issues. It's a huge reason why after people eat a meal, they're super bloated. It's from eating things like this that just destroy your gut. So that's a huge one to look out for. And then the next category would be sugar. This is really sneaky as well. So I see this so often in marketing where it says sugar free or zero sugar, especially on things like diet drinks, where they don't have cane sugar in it, but they may have dextrose, sucrose, or glucose, which are the three most common ones that I see. That all just means sugar. It just is a different name for it. But they're allowed to say sugar free if it doesn't have cane sugar. So if it's another type of sugar, they can still say sugar free and have that in there. And I will guarantee if you guys go to your cupboard right now and pull out something that says sugar free on it, it's going to have one of those things in it for sure. Because unfortunately, that's just everything has some kind of sugar in it because it wouldn't taste good if it didn't and people wouldn't buy it. But there's a few other ones too, like corn syrup, rice syrup, and fructose that are also really common. We all know the high fructose corn syrup that kind of had a big popular moment a couple years ago. So that would be category number two. And then the third one would be things high in sodium. The really common one here is the monosodium glutamate, which is the MSG. I think that one's starting to get a little bit more popularity. People are starting to realize, oh, MSG is not really great, but MSG is very addictive. It triggers that reward system in our brain of, oh my gosh, I want more of that. And it's in things like potato chips, and things like that. So looking out for anything that basically says sodium in it, is something to look out for. Now, there are types of salt that are just fine, but staying away from those like processed forms of sodium can be really dangerous. And then the last one that I'd look out for is just like that unbleached, enriched flour. This is also really inflammatory and it has to be enriched because they take out every single wheat is really good for you in so many ways. If it's grown properly, if it's harvested properly, and if it's processed properly. Unfortunately, they strip every bit of nutrition out of wheat and then they have to manually add it back in, which is that like enriched flour. So I'd really stay away from that as well. So those would be like the
Mhm.
four things.
Well, interesting. Let me ask you a couple things. So, what do you think about maple syrup?
I actually think maple syrup is a great option. I do think anything sugar-wise should be eaten in moderation. And one of the biggest reasons for this is that insulin resistance I was talking about earlier. The more sugar intake and more really like high carbohydrate focused diet you have, the more likely you are to wear out the cells that are producing your insulin. And so they stop producing insulin and now you're a type 2 diabetic.
Mhm.
Um, so that's why I think like decreasing sugar and certain carbohydrates, it depends on the type of carbohydrate, but decreasing the intake of a lot of those things is really important. However, our bodies do need sugar. Our brains cannot function without sugar. Um, and so if you are going to eat something sweet, I think 100% maple syrup, honey, and like dates and things like that are a great option.
Mhm.
Instead, that's the only forms of sweetener or sugar that we use in our house.
Mhm.
So maple syrup is a
Yeah.
lot are nutrient. The reason I listed those three things are they actually have some kind of like minerals and nutrients to give our bodies that are not just, it's not just sugar, if that makes
Mhm.
sense.
Well, also on the MSG, I think a lot of the fast food has that in there. So if you are addicted to going through the drive-through, right, and grabbing a burger and an ice cream on occasion, and then you're going to fall off the wagon of healthy eating because now you're craving those foods. Where if you didn't have the sugar, you would you would be able to resist it, I think, more. So.
So,
Um, Yeah, so I'm excited to hear more about your protein ice cream. Maybe that's a good sugar substitute, right?
yes.
Let us know in the comments, guys, if sugar is a big trigger for you, if that's something that you struggle with. And well, let's go into that protein ice cream. So, can you tell us what it is and why do we need protein, especially for women 50 plus, women past menopause? Why we always keep hearing you need more protein and you don't get enough. It's hard to eat a lot of protein. So maybe you could. And one other thing, really quick too. Someone I was talking to told me take unflavored protein and put it in your food, and I had thought that it took the nutrition away when it cooks, but maybe not. So maybe you could touch on that too a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So for women over 50, I think I kind of touched on this just a tiny bit earlier, but you do start to experience a lot more muscle breakdown because you don't have the hormones supporting that like muscle growth. So eating a diet that's higher in protein is really important. And I'm a firm believer in getting as much protein as you can from natural things and not using supplements as much as you can. But also, we all live busy lives and we all have days where we're like, I don't have time to go cook some chicken for dinner. And I really am not feeling chicken for dinner. And I just want to eat some ice cream for dinner instead. And I think as women, I think we all have those days. Um, and so I it is so important, especially, and I always emphasize this with my clients that are over 50. You have to make sure you're supporting your body. The more protein you eat, you're boosting your metabolism. You're increasing your strength, your mobility, that joint repair, building up your muscle, and your muscle is really what's keeping your body functioning. People that are focusing on building their muscle and doing things like the classes that you're teaching are so important, especially over 50. But you also need something to help come alongside that and continue to build up your like muscle mass or else I mean, you're still going to grow muscle mass if you're exercising, but if you're not supporting it well, it's not going to be as efficient as it could be. So like you guys have heard me talk about this entire conversation. I'm a firm believer in single ingredient foods and eating whole foods. And so I spent a really long time looking for a company that made supplements and protein powders and things like that out of ingredients that were from grass-fed animals that were quality, that were sourced from really high quality ingredients and did not have all of the things I just talked about, not wanting in your food. And so I did so much research looking into this, and I wanted to find a company that had all of these things and was just really reputable. And I ended up finding a company called Just Ingredients. And I've been using their products for a very long time now. And then I think it was about a year ago, they ended up letting me have like a discount code through them, so I get to help promote their products, which I am so excited about because I use them. I take their multivitamins, their vitamin D. We live in the Northwest, so we hardly ever see the sun, so it was a necessity. But I take so many of their supplements, and then my husband and I love their protein powders. They do something really fun where you can go in and do like a sample pack. So they have little sample packs where you can get just, a serving or two of any of their flavors. They have it actually just launched where now you can go in and pick which of their protein powder flavors you want to try. And then it sends you I think it's 14 small packs. You can try them before you're buying a huge bag of protein powder, not knowing if you're gonna like the flavor or not.
Mm.
So that's really fun because that's what we did when we first started. We got a huge pack of all the different flavors, tried all of them. We were like, oh, these are like the five we love, and then those are the ones we ended up buying and that we use all the time. But they come out with seasonal ones that are always really fun, like a pumpkin spice one in the fall and a vanilla peppermint at Christmas and things like that. So and we do love turning it into desserts. I'm a firm believer that desserts should be a part of life. They make life so much more fun. So I am always on a mission to make healthier desserts. And I'm actually getting ready to launch a little series on my Instagram that's going to be just like my favorite high protein desserts that are not
Oh.
don't have any of these things in them. So yes, but we do make protein ice cream, essentially just making like a protein shake out of one of these flavors and then freezing it. That's all you have to do. Just put it in a container in the fridge and freeze it. And then we just put some fun little toppings on it and eat it just like that. And it scoops up beautifully, just like ice cream.
Mhm. Yeah, that's what I first found you on Instagram. You were doing a taste test with another lady, and you were like, "Well, here comes the mint chocolate. How are you going to rate this one?" And I think you had salted caramel and um, coconut, chocolate coconut. So a lot of different unique flavors that I think would make great ice cream. Now, do you have a neutral one that's no flavor too?
Yes, there is,
Mm.
and there's also vegan ones as well. So if people are, um, are cannot tolerate dairy or drinking dairy, so they can't do the whey protein, the company does offer vegan ones as well, that are also they also taste amazing. So
Mm.
yeah.
And what do you think about putting that into foods that you cook? Do you think that that still maintains the nutrient level?
Yes, it
Mm.
does. It should not fundamentally change um, the like genetic makeup of the food enough to make it not um I guess not protein dense enough
Mhm,
for your body.
mhm.
And there's
Okay.
actually this company does a lot of like baking mixes, for example. So if you want to make like pumpkin spice muffins, they have like a muffin mix that has this in it, or you can add more protein powder into it. And lots of recipes. Even on their Instagram page, they have a lot of recipes made with their protein powders with things baked and things like that. So yes, it is great to be
Awesome.
for pretty much anything.
Yeah. And how much protein do you recommend a person should have?
That's a hard one because that really depends on the person's activity level, their weight, their age, and
Mhm.
kind of like what their goals are as well. So for me personally, um I work out 5 to 6 times a week typically, and I'm currently training for another half marathon. So in the midst of all of that, I'm having to eat about 1 to 2 grams of protein per pound of that I weigh. But that's different from somebody who is not exercising that many times a week or to that volume, if that makes sense. So it
Yeah.
really depends on what their goals are. But I would highly, that's why I'd honestly like, that's why I recommend meeting with a dietitian or somebody that, can kind of help you figure out based on your goals, what you're doing. I think a good rule of thumb is to aim to have at least like 20 to 30 grams of protein per meal that you're eating. And I that works just great for women over 50 as well because you need even more of it then. So sometimes people,
Mhm.
I've worked with a lot of clients that when they start working with me, especially in this age group, they're like, I'm not used to eating that much protein. I'm so full, I feel
Yeah.
like I'm gonna throw up. And you're like, okay, well, don't jump straight into that. If you need to ease into eating
Mhm.
that much, your body has to get used to digesting that
Mhm.
much and being able to break it down. So definitely start with where you're comfortable, but definitely ask yourself, am I eating enough protein? How much is in this? Get curious and really start to read, labels and see what's going in what you're eating. I have so
Mhm.
many clients come back after a couple weeks and they're like, oh my gosh, I was eating this yogurt and I had no idea it had more sugar in it than protein. And I didn't even realize that. So I switched to a different one. So just getting curious and not being judgmental of what you're eating already, but just learning more about it so you know exactly what you're putting in your body.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and It is so important because, especially for women over 50, if we don't eat high protein diet and stretch and exercise, uh, those women aren't going to be able to do the fun things that they used to do, like getting up and down stairs at a stadium or walking all over a festival that they want to go to with their friends, because we just lose our strength in our legs. And I think I read somewhere that a person, by the time they're in their mid 80s, they've lost, what is it, 60% of their muscle or something. It was quite high and really shocking that our muscles deteriorate that much if we don't eat a high protein diet and exercise. Just real quick before we wrap up, could you give us some ideas of what are some great high protein foods that we could get more into our diets?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll kind of start with breakfast and move throughout the day if that's okay. Um, for breakfast, anything with eggs. I think for a while people freaked out a lot about the cholesterol in egg yolks. Um, your brain needs a lot of the nutrients in egg yolks, so they are not a bad guy. It doesn't hurt to do some egg whites in combination with a couple normal eggs, though, because you still need the nutrients from the egg yolks. But it doesn't hurt to add a little bit of extra protein with egg yolks or with egg whites as well. So egg whites, eggs, eating like nitrate-free turkey bacon or something like that for breakfast. Real bacon tends to have a lot more fat in it. It's not quite as lean, so it's not as high in protein. It's more of a fat than a protein. Um, Eating things like cottage cheese. Not everybody may love cottage cheese. I personally hated cottage cheese for years, but you can blend it up, put it in a blender or blend it up with an immersion blender. Um, and you can turn it into cheesecake that way. You can turn it into puddings. I make like a banana pudding, and my husband asks for it constantly. He's like, "Do we have more of that right now?" Um, and it tastes amazing, but it doesn't, you don't think you're eating cottage cheese. So there's a lot of great ways to eat that. Getting, obviously, throwing some protein powder into some like overnight oats or things like that, super helpful. And then Greek yogurt is one that we go through constantly in our house. Just eating like a plain sugar-free, low-fat Greek yogurt is phenomenal. The protein to like calorie ratio is insane and it makes you feel so full. So eating that with some like berries and honey is great because you're getting in that little bit of sweetness that your body needs, but you're also getting in fiber from those berries and antioxidants. So that's a really good, well-rounded breakfast. And then for lunches, eating anything like chicken, chicken thighs, the chicken breast, chicken thighs, eating turkey, like ground turkey, things like that, are very lean and really good for building that muscle while also not necessarily bulking up too much or gaining too much weight. Um, Red meat is also great. I don't recommend eating it like every single day, but red meat's a good option too. And then something that's super important is eating fish. So I'm a huge advocate for this, but eating things like salmon, tuna, halibut, things like that are those are super nutrient dense and those have those omega-3s that our brains need just to function, which also helps with your mental health. If you're not eating seafood at least twice a week, you should be taking some kind of supplement to help with that. Um, but yeah, that's just a couple things that come to my mind right off the bat. If you want to download my free grocery list, it does have a whole section labeled protein, and it has all of my like meat and protein suggestions for what I would eat on there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you for all those tips. And uh, please let us know. You have some freebies for us today, as well as in the link above the video is going to be how people can follow you. So maybe you could just talk a little bit about that too.
Yes. Well, I do have Instagram. I'm just working on getting my Facebook started up, but once I do have that, I will also send that to Suzanne for her to share. But you can go follow me on Instagram. I have lots of videos of just like little health tips, some products that I really love, just kind of like my day-to-day life. Um, how I incorporate movement and things like that. And then I do a lot of grocery hauls too. So kind of showing like I went to Costco today and here's the things that I like to get at Costco and things like that. And then I do have a couple freebies for you guys if you guys want my free grocery list. It goes through every different area of food and what I recommend shopping for if you're trying to transition to a more whole food based diet and give up that ultra processed food. Um, and then I have another little guide for you that kind of, if you're new to reading labels and you're really overwhelmed by looking at it and going, whoa, I don't know what all this means, it'll just kind of walk you through, here's the things to look for. And if you see these are your red flags to not get purchased this kind of thing. And then I also offer free consultations for anybody who's interested. That does not at all lock you into doing coaching with me. It just kind of gives you an idea of what coaching would be like and gives us a chance to kind of get to know each other a little bit more. So I'd love to chat with you guys.
Well, awesome. So in the comments, everyone type grocery list if you want the free grocery list, type ingredient list if you want that free list, and then type consult if you would like a free. Yeah, what is the one-on-one? So you work one-on-one with people. Is that you offer coaching services?
Yes, so I primarily do month-long, 3 months, and the 6-month, courses, or not really courses, just meetings where we'll meet, either weekly for doing the month, long session or, biweekly for doing, like, a 3 to 6-month one. And in that, we'll really just do, like, a deep dive into your goals, what you're looking to do, and then kind of help create a holistic plan, that involves anything from eating, helping you get motivated with movement, helping you make sure that you're reaching your goals as far as mental health and spiritual health and all those things, because coaching is really a holistic practice. So just kind of going through all those different areas. It is client driven, so every single session looks so different because it's fully based on where the client wants that session to go. And I'm just here to support and provide resources and ideas and kind of just guide that growth process to make sure you're reaching the goals that you want.
Well, I love that. That's really beautiful, and that's I think the perfect uh, way to explain what a coach does. Yeah, helping you grow and meet your goals because sometimes, especially in health and wellness, it's hard to do it on your own, and you can get stuck. And it's wonderful to work with someone who's had the training and the knowledge to know what you need to help you get there. So, all right, well, thank you so much for coming and sharing all of your knowledge and wisdom with us. And you guys go check out her Instagram page, check out her ice cream flavors. I definitely want to get one of those sample packs. It sounds really good. I need more protein in my life. And so thank you
Yes.
guys so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. And I did want to just say, if you guys want 15% off at Just Ingredients for a discount, just use my name, Katherine Hall, all together, and that will give you, I think it's either 10 or 15% off. I can't remember. But yes.
Awesome. Okay, awesome. Well,
Yeah,
we love discounts too, so thank you for that.
absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. This has been such a blast.
All right, awesome. And if you guys have questions, reach out in the comments and we will get back to you and she will answer your questions for you guys. Okay, thank you so much and hope to see you soon.
Sounds good. Bye.
Bye-bye.